Hey there, Eric from Common Room here. So I get a lot of questions around website visits and basically trying to understand, how do I know that I have it set up? Are we getting the right traffic coming through? What's needed to know about like website visits and the plays that we can take off of those? So I'm just going to run through a few of the basics here so that we're all on the same page of things that you can kind of expect and do when it comes to website visits. So first place I'm going to stop is going through the setup of that. So really quickly, I'm going to jump down to the settings menu here. And then under the signals and integrations section, you'll see website visits here. More specifically, if you narrow it down, it's under native signals. One thing to note on this page, you'll see that it says connected. That doesn't actually necessarily mean that it's set up. This just kind of highlights once you've hit the button to say website visits. And so really what we want to do here is make sure that this is actually set up in a way that is going to be functioning in our system. And we'll go through how to validate that a little bit later. So if I click on this here, it's going to bring me to the website visits kind of setup page. So first thing I'm going to do is go down to this lower section. What you're going to want to do is, if you haven't already, you're going to need to basically copy this code snippet. We got a button right here, so you can hit that. It'll copy it. And then you're going to need to embed it on your website. And there's a few different ways to do this that we've listed out the options here, basically in the HTML body tag or using Google Tag Manager. If you want more discrete or detailed instructions, we have a link here, so you can click on that. And that'll jump you out to our support doc that'll actually walk you through kind of some of the more intricate details of website visits. One thing to note is that there's some additional details in here, but you don't need to go really much further than that to capture not just your main page, but like every page underneath. And I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. So you'll want to embed this on your web page so that you've got that information. One other enhancement here is that we do have additional traffic info powered by Vector that we've just brought on. And so if you want to use that, keep in mind this is only for US traffic, but basically what this does is enhance the identification information of those that have visited your website in the US. So here you just turn this little toggle on. You're going to log in to your Vector account to make sure that we're all synced up there. And if you want more details for that, basically, you can just click on this article here, and there's a little bit more info here. So that's how you're going to set up your websites. And again, that's going to carry over kind of the entirety of your website and all the breakdown there. So let's go take a look at how you would actually then see what website visitors are coming through and kind of validate that you have this set up. So I'm going to go back over to the main app here. And just looking at my contacts page alone, the quickest, easiest way to figure out, who's been visiting your website and whether or not this is set up and functioning is coming over to signals here. From the signals side of things, you're going to scroll down until you find website visits. And that's going to tell you when you click on that, if you've got traffic coming through here, that means that you actually have website visits set up and people are coming through via your setup there. So this is showing me, hey, these are individuals that have been visiting our website. On first setup, this may take a little while to get traffic through, but once you've got traffic rolling, you're going to see them here. The other thing I'll call out here is if you go to our additional filters, and on the far right here under website visits, you'll see a section called URLs visited. This is how you get to those discrete URLs that are sub URLs of your main page. And so obviously in like a sales scenario, something like pricing is going to matter a lot more than the careers page. And so I want to see, for example, people have been visiting the pricing page. And this is going to break down that list of results for individuals that are visiting the pricing page. And so you were able to see here with URLs visited that it carried over all of the kind of sub URLs. Now, a couple things to note about what we see when we look at website visits here is we as with most tools on the market, like you're not going to just have somebody go on your website and know easily who they are. We do our best on our side to go through a level of enrichment and tie together all of the different signals of data to try to pull that person in and make sure that we know who they are. But realistically, a lot of this ties back to whether or not they've like submitted some sort of a login or a form fill. You can track via UTM tagging on your links, and that's covered in that website article. But a lot of times we're not necessarily going to know specifically who has been visiting our website. And so know that the number of people that show up in here is really reflective of people that we've been able to identify visiting our website. So there's a couple other pieces that we can look at regarding that. Again, you're going to get a little bit more enhancement if you use that vector integration if you're looking for US traffic. Um, but the other thing that we can do here is we actually capture this information via anonymous visitors as well. And so this is where there's really an opportunity to take advantage of this on the org level. And so while we may not know specifically visitors at the contact level, because it's really hard to capture that direct information, we can get somewhere with the org level. So coming over to organizations here, if I do a similar filter and filter by signals and filter down to website visits, you're going to see all of the orgs here that have had some sort of a website visit. And this means someone within that org has visited your website. The difference here being that this is not necessarily correlated to a specified individual. And so if we dig into any given account here, what you're going to see is a few different things. I'm going to jump over to the website visits tab. And you'll see a lot of this in here: anonymous website visitor, anonymous website visitor. Sometimes you'll come across an org where it's entirely anonymous website visitors. The good thing here is that we know that someone from this org has been visiting your website, and we basically track that over IP addresses that we associate with those companies. And so there's a couple different ways that we can look at this information as you relate to contacts versus as you look at like maybe some options that you can do with plays. With orgs. So let's go back really quick, look at contacts, and kind of talk through how we can look at this from a contacts perspective, and then the enhancement that we can do as we're looking at this from a an orgs plays perspective. So I'm going to jump back over to contacts here. On the contact side of things, obviously, you can start to narrow down by who's been visiting your website. We can do a blanket signal of like just website visits in general, of this is everybody who's been visiting our website. Or as I indicated earlier, you can come over to filters here and say like, I'm only interested in people who have been visiting the pricing page. That matters to me more. And so here, now we've got a very specified list of like, we know these are people who have been visiting our pricing page. If you want to get more discreet on that, you can add some additional filters. For example, like I want to find economic buyers or people that are also ideal personas that have been visiting our pricing page. And, you can start to specify this list down to get like a really, really key list of individuals that are going to basically be kind of hot in one way or another. Depending on what filter criteria you have applied, you could come here and add a filter on your website visits for like last seen on website in the last, 14 days, let's say. And so now I can see who's been on our pricing page in the last 14 days. And you've got a really actionable play here that you can take advantage of. So with contacts, you've got a lot of options as to how you can really drill down into this information. But again, we're limited with who we really know who this is in here. And so there's this is going to be a more specified list where not as much is going to pop up as frequently, because of the fact that to get this information takes a little bit more details from those specific contacts. So you can look at some of those filters. We can look at job changers who are coming from an org that was a customer previously. So you come in here and, for example, say like anybody who's been visiting my website who has changed a job in the last 6 months. And then this is a demo room, so I don't know if I'm going to have it in here, but like if you go to org tags, customer, previous org, and again, this is a demo room, so it's not showing up here, but basically this would show me a list of anybody who was a customer of mine at their previous company who's changed jobs recently and is visiting our website. And so that might be a play that you run there. And so there's a lot that you can kind of tweak on here. Again, demo room, so it doesn't show me results, but you get the idea of like what you can run with on the contacts page. Let's talk about some plays that you can run with orgs. So I'm going to jump over to the orgs page here. And again, this is where we're going to take advantage of that ability to look at the website visitors that may be anonymous at our org. So I'm going to go to signals here. Again, you can kind of do this at the more blanket level of website visits, or if you are more interested in, like I said, like a pricing page, you can come in and do the same sort of thing here. and specify that page. But I'm just going to leave it open for now. And so we'll say, hey, let's look at all orgs who have been visiting our website. Now, if there's something of interest, let's say that we're looking at one of these orgs that's been defined as ICP in here. Again, you should have a more proper ICP tag set up. But once you do, you look at the ICP orgs and then say, great, now I know that there are these orgs that are ICP orgs who have been visiting our website. So a play that we could do here is I could come in to these orgs, and let's just pick one out here. And I'm going to look at, this specific org. You can come in and kind of drill through the details of who's been visiting. Sometimes you'll have lots, sometimes it'll only be kind of one in here. But let's say, for example's sake, that this was a really hot visit. They visited the pricing page or whatever. We've specified that. The next move in the play would be to come over to the contacts page, and you're going to look at what contacts you have there. And if those contacts are who you'd want to reach out to, that ideal persona, that's the play. Is you come in and you either add them to a sequence or email them or whatever you're going to do. But in the event that you don't have a contact that's relevant in here, the next play that you can do is say, hey, I've got orgs that have been visiting my website or maybe my pricing page specifically that I know someone there is interested, and maybe they're an ICP org. So what I want to do is go find someone to sell to in that org. There's someone at that org who's interested. They're visiting pages that matter. They're in my ICP, but I don't have a contact there that is the right person to sell to. So the next move that you can do is you can hit prospector here. And then if you've defined this in your settings, which I'll jump over to in just a second so you can see it, but if you've defined this in your settings, then globally this will apply for like default who you would prospect for. Now, these people aren't in your room, but basically, again, what this shows is a list of people that meet the criteria that you've defined of who you could prospect in this org. And so, maybe you've set your criteria to have that director level and above, and maybe within certain verticals or certain titles that you have. And here you're going to see those. And basically what you can do is you can either one by one add them to your room, or you can come in and bulk select against these things and add as contact. When you add them as contact to your room, we'll go ahead and enrich that data against that individual. And so you'll have a lot more information about them. Absent of that, when you're still prospecting, you can click into these individuals and it'll pull up their profile on LinkedIn. And so you can kind of run a prospecting play off of that. And so the idea here would be come in, define kind of what website and ICP criteria that you want, create an org segment off of that. And then the play would be to run coming in and looking at different orgs there. Lastly, really quick, I'll come back over to kind of how you set that prospector up under settings. If you go into our native signals and prospector, this is where you're going to define that default criteria for your prospector of like the different titles that you would be going after, level of title, and all that sort of stuff. And so just to recap, you're going to want to set up website visits if you haven't already. Once you've set that up, the way to check if you have website visits set up is to come in here and to go down to website visits and see that you've got traffic. You can also see how integrated this has been. If you come over to website visits and see the available URLs, you can specify by checking on these checkboxes or searching for specific URLs and filtering by that. You can then add the additional filter criteria, if it's ICP, ideal persona, specified org, whatever it is, job changers, come in and build a play off of that for contacts. And then, for contacts, it's going to be a hotter level play because those are very clearly named individuals. And then at the org level, that play is going to be like, we're capturing the anonymous website visitors. And so, what orgs have been visiting. And then once we narrow down by what orgs have been visiting, who within that org may be a contact. And if we don't have the right contacts, going and prospecting that org and then running a play against them. We can create segments off of this, and you can kind of go through that exercise there. So I hope this was helpful. Hope this helps you better understand website visitors and helps you have the ability to take action against website visits.